Hello, mysterious person behind the screen, and welcome back to another audio commentary with me and Isaac.
Kneel before Zod.
And if you hadn't guessed, we are doing Superman 2, the theatrical version from 1980, not the Richard Donner cut from 2006. So, yes, without further ado.
If you'd like to sync this up with the Blu-ray copy of the theatrical cut of Superman 2, put the film to the start and press play in 3, 2, 1, go.
So, Superman 2, a film that I've had a very complicated relationship with over the years, and I think is going to be a fascinating one to talk about from a production standpoint.
Well, when I first watched it, I actually saw it as the best of the original four. But I think now I lean more towards the original.
Yeah, it used to be my favourite. As a kid, it was my favourite. As a kid, I watched this loads and loads of times because it is the most kind of action packed of all of them. I think it's got the balance between action and story. As an adult and having watched both versions quite a few times, it's one of those things now where I've noticed certain things about it that I can't unnotice, and I don't know that either version holds together really as a great film. However, I still really enjoy it. It's still a really fun film at the end of the day. It's definitely. I mean, the big weakness of it, obviously, everyone knows it's two directors. It's a bit of a Frankenstein production, and the big thing that kind of really took me out of loving Superman 2 was a few years ago. Really for the first time being able to notice how different all the actors look. Sometimes even in the same scene when it cuts between Lester and Donner footage, and since then, I've kind of just been sort of unable to fully immerse myself in it, unfortunately.
Well, according to the Soul Kinds, they did offer to Richard Donner and say, "Do you want to share the director credit with Richard Lester?" But Donner refused to.
Yeah, he said, "I don't share credit," which is fair enough, because it was a pretty traumatic thing creatively to happen to you, being kicked off the production. And
well, apparently Richard Lester didn't want to direct it, but apparently the Soul Kinds paid him for what they owed him for the Musketeer films, and he was like, "Okay, I'll do it now."
That's it. Yeah, and we spoke about this last time in the Superman the movie commentary, but I do think Lester gets a lot of undue shit for it's easy to look at, he was the director that replaced the fired director, and it's a bit like, well, he was in a very awkward position. Anyone would have struggled, I think. But yeah, it's a funny situation, and it's a situation that then repeated itself years later on Justice League, which is just mad.
Yeah, ironic.
I love this opening title sequence, by the way. I love the recap thing. I think it's a fun way of recapping the events of the first one. I really like the kind of variation of the theme that we have. It's very obvious that they're trying to cut round Marlon Brando there, but
yep. It is something that Richard Lester did on The Four Musketeers, because that film's titles have a recap of what happened in The Three Musketeers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I think it works. I much prefer this opening to the opening of the Donner cut. This one definitely gets me more excited to watch the film every time I see it.
But on the other hand, in the Donner cut, I like how just things kick off immediately, where Superman releases the Kryptonians, and they're just like, "Freedom!" And then that's it. We're immediately into the action.
Yeah, that is good. It's one of those things where I think doing this, I think whatever version we were going to do, the commentary on, I think we pretty much have the same talking points. I think there's going to be a lot of crossover in this commentary between which kind of cut we're going to be talking about, because it's
because I think to sum up the differences between the two versions is that they're radically different but confusingly similar.
Yeah, basically. And it's, you know, I pretty much like both versions equally. The advantage that this one has is that it is more of a finished film. Like this one holds together as a film better than the Donner cut, because I think the thing with the Donner cut is it is like noticeably a patchwork, and it's noticeably a work in progress. And I think, and this is sort of, again, it's kind of since I've become a video editor as a job, I've noticed more the kind of the editing of the Donner cut really leaves a lot to be desired, and it's a lot of like short scenes that don't seem to flow together. It's just something about the Donner cut that I just can't jive with. However, it does have a lot of advantages over this version. Chief among them, Jarrell being in it.
Yeah, of course.
Interesting that E.G. Marshall there gets a E.G. Marshall as the president credit. He gets a special character credit.
Who's E.G. Marshall?
Well, exactly. It's interesting.
Well, it's funny because I think the credits are in alphabetical order, so Terence Stamp is right at the bottom, which is so weird.
It's mental, isn't it? It's interesting. Some of those Metropolis shots were used in the TV cut of Superman the movie.
Speaking of TV cuts, I don't know if Superman 2 would ever get the TV cut of it would ever get a Blu-ray release, because apparently a lot of the footage that was cut but used for the TV version is by Richard Donner, so
yeah.
Who do you credit it to, Richard Donner or Richard Lester? It might just open up a can of worms.
I think it probably would. I think that's probably why we haven't seen it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Especially now that Richard Donner's passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing actually that is sort of a little bit unknown is that there are two versions of the Donner cut. There's the common version of the Donner cut that's on Blu-ray, and then years ago on, I think it was Vudu or something, you could buy an extended Donner cut, which was like 5 minutes longer. And it came out that like Michael Thor, the editor, was like, "Yep, that version should never have seen the light of day. I don't know how it got out there." So there's like another version of that. There's the TV cut. So technically, there's 4 versions of this film, if you were to be technical about it.
I mean, I don't think there's anything to stop them from releasing Superman 3, the TV cut on Blu-ray, if they ever get round to it.
Yeah, there shouldn't be. I think the TV cut for that one is much less notable, though. The big notable one with that one is that it's got like proper opening credits in space, instead of the comedy montage that we have. God, I forget how long these titles are, though.
Yeah.
It's still it'll never happen, but it's still one of my most wanted things, is to have like an ultimate cut of Superman 2.
Where it combines both of them together.
Yeah, I would love that, because I think that's kind of, both have their strengths and weaknesses. This exterior shot of the Daily Planet is used in like all 4 films, isn't it? It's like the same shot that they use. I really like all this stuff as well, because obviously this is reshot Lester footage, but I think you can tell that Chris Reeve feels much more kind of comfortable, like the hat toss thing, and his movements feel a bit more like choreographed than they do in the first one.
Yeah, true, and obviously he looks considerably older here.
Well, yeah, that's the factor. It's one of the it's when you know that these, this film was shot like in over 3 years essentially.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah. But I like the Paris subplot as well. I know some people don't, but I think it kind of opens the film with a good bit of action. Yeah. I also think Jimmy Olsen looks younger in the Leicester footage than he does in the than he did in the first one. I love that as well. That's terrible. That's why they call them terrorists, Ken. That's a great line.
Wow, I call him terror, Ken.
That's really good. Yeah, it's hard because you kind of have to look at this like from a personal standpoint. What was done to Richard Donner was awful, but you kind of have to look at it from like a creative standpoint, and it's like opening the film with a bit more action was probably a wise decision, in the long run. But
I mean, both Richard Donner and the Sorkinds have given their versions of what happened, so
yeah,
it's not a case of who do you believe, really.
There was still a lot of bad blood even when Richard Donner passed away. It never truly got healed up, I don't think. I mean, the interviews, yeah.
Tom Mankiewicz left in like solidarity as well, so
yeah.
Again, makes me wonder where would this franchise have gone had Richard Donner stayed on.
It's a fascinating one to think about. It really is. It's just. It's such a shame that he left, and it's such a shame that he left under such bad circumstances as well. Even like in the interviews promoting the Donner cut, I think he was going, yeah. So so I left the production, and a director whose name I forget on purpose had to replace me, and it's just, he was still very bitter over it, and he still wouldn't, name Richard Lester or talk about him just because of the bad blood and everything, and it's a shame. It really is. Now Margot Kidder here looks considerably different to the first one. She, am I right in saying that she was quite ill around this time?
She was going through a divorce at the time.
Right? Yeah, that I wouldn't, because she looks substantially thinner, and I think she was struggling with a lot of, because she struggled all throughout her life with like mental health problems and all sorts. But yeah, she looks really kind of quite thin in the Leicester footage. I think it's her really when I say about like you really notice how different the actors look in between shots. It's really her that is the most obvious example of that, I think. But this is all well done, I think. You don't. It doesn't feel like a sequence that's been tacked onto the film.
It kind of feels like it does kind of feel like a day in the life of Superman, but let's tie it back to the first film by releasing the 3 villains.
Yeah, exactly. There's Richard Griffiths there as one of the terrorists.
Really? That's uncool, then.
It is, yeah.
Nice.
And again, it's a pick your poison thing, because it's like, this is much more of like a standalone Superman adventure, but the other version is much more connected to the first one, and it's like
definitely,
yeah. Because this used to be when I wanted to watch a Superman film, this used to be the one that I would always put on. But now, controversially, and we'll talk about it next time. It's the last few years I'm finding myself really putting Superman 3 on a lot more.
Yeah, true.
And it's Superman 3 is not as good as this film, and it's definitely not a patch on the first one. But I think because of how standalone it is, I often find myself gravitating towards that. If I just want some Superman, it's interesting because it used to be, I've watched this film so many times, but
At this point in Richard Lester's career, he didn't make too many films after this because after the return of the Musketeers, he decided to basically give up on filmmaking or just decided to retire.
yeah.
The only thing he did after that was Get Back, which wasn't technically a film, it was more of a concert film which just documented Paul McCartney's world tour of the late 80s. But
Yeah.
Return of the Musketeers was his, should we say, his final film because, well, one of his close friends, Roy Kinnear, died during the film.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Because Roy Kinnear is the guy he's in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, isn't he?
He is, he's Veruca Salt's dad, yeah.
Yeah.
He's in the first two Musketeer films as like a sidekick to D'Artagnan, and
Right.
he does that role again in Return of the Musketeers, but he fell off a horse during filming, broke his pelvis, and died of a heart attack.
Oh, bloody hell. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's how he died. And yeah, even Richard Lester said, I don't really want to talk about the Return of the Musketeers. I never have, and I won't now, but I think you can draw your own conclusions.
Right, yeah, so sort of...
Yeah, because I think the problem with the film is it's trying to do a let's get the band back together, but it's clear everyone's just too old and too tired to do it all again.
I mean, I would have liked to have seen him do... I don't know how good it would have been, but I would have liked to have seen a third Beatles film from him. Because obviously,
me too, yeah.
The third Beatles film is Magical Mystery Tour, which he had nothing to do with. And it's just weird. The Magical Mystery Tour is such an odd film. And the Beatles didn't want to do a third one. They were contractually obligated to be at the end of Yellow Submarine, but they didn't want to do another one. But I would have liked to have seen a third Richard Lester directed Beatles film. I think it would have been interesting, especially because the era that they were all going into. But
yeah, because Help is just compared to A Hard Day's Night, it's just a very... The only thing you can say that's similar about the two is the fact that they both have the Beatles in.
Oh, it's a mad film. I really like it, but it is a mad film. Compared to Hard Day's Night, it is completely different. I
mean, it's funny how it says Help, starring the Beatles. It really should have been Help, starring Ringo Starr and his bandmates, because it's really just Ringo's film.
Basically, yeah. It's an odd film. It's one of those... It's very exhausting to watch. Mm-hmm. Like, I watch it and I'm just like, fucking hell. Because it is so, like, mental. But yeah, it's an interesting snapshot of that.
Well,
And
I think
doesn't...
Hard Day's Night, it's like the perfect party that you just don't want to leave. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hard Day's Night is excellent. Help is just fun.
Weird.
And and it doesn't help that, like, the Beatles are stoned throughout the entire thing as well. And they've admitted
they admitted that, yeah.
Got to say, that's one of my favourite Christopher Reeve Superman moments. And fair play to, all the drama behind the scenes. His performance, I don't think, ever slips. He's a professional throughout the entire thing.
Because you can tell with the Donner cut, it's earlier footage, isn't it? Whereas here, he feels a lot more settled.
Yeah, he feels a lot more settled, and also I just think it's how he holds himself as well, and just some of the line deliveries, like the one I think everyone always mentions is in The Fortress when he's like, "Father!" In the Donner cut, it's very kind of... Yeah, I never really bought it.
Mm-hmm.
And I must say, I like both versions. I have a lot of problems with the Donner cut, so if it sounds like I'm being too negative at any point about that version versus this one, I do like both. It's just, it's one of those films, just because of the nature of it. it's I don't think there's no, like I said at the top, there's no perfect version of it, which is frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Christopher Reeve, he did really feel like the mediator between the Salkinds and Richard Donner, just trying to keep everything at
He
peace
is,
and under control. And he said he got on with Richard Lester. So makes me think if
yeah,
you're just trying to be the one to keep the peace between everyone and be like, let's not fall out, guys.
he does feel kind of like the glue that's holding everyone together, because I get the sense that a lot of the other cast members, and this isn't like a dig at anyone in particular, but I get the sense that, like, based on what they said over the years as well, I get the sense a lot of people did not want to do this. They, like, did not want to continue working under Richard Lester and the whole politics of it. Whereas, like I said, I think Christopher Reeve comes across as a very professional, like, okay, it's not the ideal situation, but how can we make the best of this? We've got to do our jobs, and that's the kind of sense I get. Because you hear a lot of stories, especially like Superman 3, you hear a lot of stories from people saying, yeah, he was getting a bit too big for his boots almost, like he was getting a bit too kind of in control. But honestly, when I hear that, it reminds me a bit of Paul McCartney, to be honest. I get the sense that it's just like, well, somebody had to keep the band together. Yeah. Somebody had to keep things in order. Somebody had to kind of make the best out of a bit of a rough situation. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, you probably had to be a little bit more forceful and in control.
I know Richard Lester scrapped most of Jeffrey Unsworth's footage, didn't he? And just hired Robert Painter to create his own style. And you can certainly tell on this film that there is a difference between the two.
Yeah, again, it just adds to the fact that it's like noticeably a patchwork film. Having said that, though, Bob Painter does. There are a few shots here and there where you can tell he's trying to match Unsworth's photography a little bit. Like, there are a few little moments where he's got the kind of soft focus. Mostly on shots of Lois, I'm noticing now watching this. They're doing the old, like, James Bond Vaseline on the lens thing to make the women seem more beautiful. But yeah, this is interesting as well. Actually, something that's just occurred to me. If you watch the Donner cut, Lois is at her desk that she was in the first film, and now with this, the Lester footage, they've clearly, made an attempt to make time having passed since the first one, because she's now got her own little office space, which she never had before.
Yeah, apparently Gene Hackman refused to come back for reshoots.
Yeah, because later on you get the awful body double and impersonator when he's at the fortress.
Which fortress scene is it? Where he discovers it, or when he's with the?
It's at the end. There's a very obvious shot where so when the villains take him there for the final battle. They put him down, and there's a shot of him like getting up, shaking his fist to the air, and going, "You ever heard of parachutes?" And it's like obviously not Gene Hackman's voice or body. Like, it's a very bad impressionist. And again, I hadn't noticed it, but as an adult, one time I noticed it, and now I can't unnotice it. And that's kind of the curse of this film. Like, I've just the last few times I've watched it, I've just noticed all the little bits that give the game away, that it is a bit of a pat's job. And I find it fascinating from a post-production perspective, and I still, to this day, it's just time, really, but I would still love to do my own cut of it one day.
Yeah, a lot of fans have.
A lot of fans have, and I'd love to have a go at it and just have a bit of a fun experiment, but it's just time. But you can
also, here's the funny thing. Otis and later Miss Teschmacher, they appear in like one or two scenes, and then boom, they never appear again.
Yeah.
And there's no explanation as to where they went.
And I wonder if that was... Do you think Donna was planning to shoot more from those two, or do you think it was a case of... that was just always it for them? Because in the Donna cut, they disappear as well, but was that just due to the fact they didn't get around to shooting the footage?
Possibly, yeah.
It's hard to tell. It's so hard to tell, because none of the stuff with Ned Beatty is Lester stuff. He didn't come back. So it's... And I think all this control room stuff is Lester footage, but I'm unsure. Because I know it's completely different in the Donna cut. Like, there's different... All the takes are different, which would imply that it's... I don't know. It's so difficult to tell. I know the moon fight is all Richard Donner stuff. You can tell that it's just the way the shots are composed is a bit more like purposeful with Donner's footage. Oh, and we're about to get... I forgot to mention him in the first one, but we're about to get John Ratzenberger. I think,
we certainly are, yeah.
Yeah, because he is in the first one very briefly. Trying to sort out all the missile stuff. But yeah. And Shane Rimmer, of course. Always fun to see turn up in these. In Bond, in Superman. Again, I spoke about it last time. I just love this era of making all these big franchise films in Britain. And he was in Doctor Who, wasn't he, Shane Rimmer? He was in The Gunfighters.
He is, yeah. And he's in Batman Begins as well, and a couple of Bond films as well.
Yeah. I forget he's in Batman Begins, yeah. I met Sarah Douglas at a Comic-Con a few years ago. She was very nice. Yeah, she was lovely. I always remember there was a guy in front who was getting a bit, shall we say, handsy? He was getting, like, he kept grabbing her for a hug and, like, kissing her on the cheek, and he walked away and she just turned to me and just shook her head and went, bloody hell. Which is quite funny. But yeah, she was lovely. She does a lot of Comic-Cons, I think. And of course, I forget it's not her voice for this version of the film either. It's the same woman who plays Vera in Superman 3.
So in the Donna cut, is it her own voice?
In the Donna cut, it's her own voice, but it flits between, because obviously the scenes that they never got around to dubbing. It's the same reason if you watch the Donna cut as well. Terence Stamp's voice goes from his normal pitch to the pitch down version. Because if you notice in this version, they pitch down all his dialogue to make him sound deeper, which they don't do for the audio in the Donna cut. So yeah, Vera from Superman 3 is Ursa's voice in this version. But again, that's the thing that always baffled me about the Donna cut. I don't know how easy it would have been to just remove the dubbing from the actors who play Vera, because surely they must have had the audio tracks, like the raw track. So I don't know why they didn't just remove the dubbing if they wanted to make it consistent. And the same thing with Terence Stamp's voice. 2006, you could have quite easily pitched his voice back up.
Yeah, true.
I don't know. It's just, again, it's just inconsistencies that probably could have been quite easy to sort out. This is good though. The moon attack stuff is all you know. The shot a minute ago of General Zod above the astronaut as he looked up is really quite creepy. You know, I think everyone loves Terence Stamp in this film. He's become pretty iconic for his performance. And he's still, when I think of General Zod, he's still, you know, as good of actor Michael Shannon is. It's Yeah, it's always going to be Terrence Stamp for me.
Definitely, yeah.
It's so interesting though, like watching this, because it gives a very interesting look into the Salkinds' thought process when they were like, we're not just going to do one Superman film, we're going to make two, and it's going to be in two parts, and it's going to be this, you know, they sunk so much money into it. It's no wonder they were so protective over it, because the amount of money they spent on it.
Oh,
like,
yeah, definite.
They're, you know, in a way you can't really blame
at least
them.
at least they were more honest this time around,
Yeah,
considering what they did with the Musketeer films.
Well, there you go. It's one of those things like the Salkinds. It's kind of. I'm surprised there's not been like a big documentary about them or something, because they are a fascinating like group of people. Like just their practices. It's funny. You went from a group of people who chucked everything at the wall, were so passionate about making these big epic adventures and these big epic films, to then in the fourth one, you've got Cannon, who were the exact opposite and were just cost cutting at every turn.
The
hologram.
I take it the reason Supergirl is not included in like any box set with these films is because it's not Warner Brothers, isn't it? It's TriStar.
Well, technically, but Warner Brothers did put it out on Blu-ray a few years ago for the first time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think Warner Brothers have I think the rights stuff has kind of settled now. It's a bit baffling that it's not included in any releases, because it kind of should be, because it is part of the, you know, Lois Lane sisters in it, Jimmy Olsen's in it. There's a poster of Christopher Reeve in it, if that counts. But yeah,
well, they asked him to appear in Supergirl, didn't they? But he didn't want to.
Yeah, and it would have been a very different film had he appeared in that, because I mentioned it last night. I watched that for the first time very recently, and it's very emblematic of what the Salkinds did, because it looks great, you know, the effects are great, and Helen Slater's really good as Supergirl, but it's just all the money just got spent on a shit script. Like it's one of the biggest cases where the script is just diabolically bad, and it just lets down everything else. And it's such a shame, because you have Peter O'Toole, Buddy Lawrence of Arabia is in it.
Yeah, and Simon Ward as well.
Simon Ward.
Wow.
Ellis from Die Hard is in it. You know, it's it's such a shame that film went the way it did, and it would have. I honestly think if Christopher Reeve had appeared in it, it probably would be included in the box sets, and it definitely would have like much more of a reason to watch it, because it is, you know, as it is, there's no point really bothering. But give it props though, because it was really the first time that somebody had tried to launch a superhero universe.
Yeah, true.
So it gets points for that. Now, all the Niagara Falls stuff is Leicester footage.
Yeah, okay.
And you can tell that it's Leicester footage because they always talk about the freshly squeezed orange juice, which is a subplot exclusive to this version. But again, in the Donner cut, they speak about it, even though it doesn't exist in that version. And again, every time I watch it, I'm just like, you could have cut that line out. Because there's a bit coming up where she's like, "Oh, can you get me some orange juice? Freshly squeezed." I know, okay. But if you're only watching the Donner cut, that line comes out of nowhere because they've not set up the orange juice.
That's true. It's
stuff like that, or I'm just like, could you not have just cut that one line? Like, how hard would it have been? But I like all this stuff. I like this is good fun. Like the when he sits on the bed and he's like, oh, it's alive. It's really good fun. I like all this, but it is, you can tell the way it's shot is very TV. Like this looks like it could be the set of a sitcom.
Yeah, true.
Just the where the camera's placed as well. It's almost like if you put a laugh track over this, it wouldn't be too out of place.
I mean, that bellhop's giving me that one from The Simpsons where Homer's about to have an affair. There's your
Oh my God.
bed for wow. Hopper, hopper. Stop that.
Oh my God,
my
you're
wife
so
and family.
Oh my God, you're so right. But again, I like the idea of Lois and Clark being sent out to do little work trips and stuff. It makes sense. Again, it adds to the thing that like this version of the film is definitely, it's implied to take place quite a bit after the first one. Because you get the sense, just their dialogue, you get the sense that they've been on a few work trips before this. You know, you get the sense that this isn't the first time they've done this. So it's interesting. Yeah. And again, it is the type of thing that I don't want to keep harping on it, but I think this is the type of thing that only really works in this version, because when you, obviously they were forced to use all this in the Donner cut because there'd be big plot holes otherwise, just based on what they didn't shoot. But I don't think it works all that well in that version, because it just feels like it takes place at a different point in time to the rest of the film, if that makes sense. Yeah. But the reaction, I would say that this film now has a bit more of a mixed reception, doesn't it? But I would say now, like when it came out, the reaction was pretty positive. If you look at kind of reviews at the time, and many people actually said it was better than the first one, and yeah.
Just listening to Luther there, is that the double as well? That didn't sound like Gene Hackman.
It might be. It may be. Just because obviously he's in a different place. Because in the Donner cut, that scene takes place over the prison, doesn't it? It like just as they've escaped. Because they like use a different blue screen and stuff. I like this as well. I like, it's continuing the first one's thing of Lois is very cynical and Clark is, optimistic, and it's good. It's a good dynamic. Again, you get the idea that I think the Lois suspecting that Clark is Superman thing works a little bit better in this version, I've got to say, just because because you get the sense that more time has passed, you can sort of infer that she's had some time to think about this.
Yeah, because like with the Donner cut, it just opens immediately with "You're Superman. I'm going to prove it. Let me jump out this window."
Yeah, and that is never as much. I do love all that stuff in the Donner cut though, where she's like ribbing him and like teasing him about being able to fly and stuff. That's all really good in the Donner cut. So yeah, again, it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off.
Yeah, Margot Kidder at the time was going through a divorce with Thomas McGuane. And then I think, didn't she marry John Hurd, but for like a couple of days or something like that?
I think so. It's possible. I mean,
I only know
Margot
this from The Unusual Suspect, yeah.
Yeah. Margot Kidder had a very interesting life. And a very sad one. A very sad one. Yeah. She was married to Richard Pryor for a little bit, wasn't she? But was that before or after Superman 3?
I'm not too sure. Let's have a look.
Because I wonder how much of a role that played in her not being in that for a good chunk of it.
Yeah, true.
I've just realised, presumably it's the dad of the kid. The kid walks over to him and he's just holding his hands up in the air going, "Jeez."
And Clark isn't here.
Super duper hot dogs.
I mean, the way she says it, I'm getting vibes from Time Flight. Surely this big red lever can't open the TARDIS doors. That's probably one of the worst lines in Doctor Who history. Come on.
Yeah, it probably is. I mean, in a script like Time Flight, there's some stiff competition in that script.
I'll say this, the best fourth wall break isn't Hartnell going to the camera and wishing people a happy Christmas. It's the censorite who looks at the camera and says, "I never thought of that.
I have never thought of that."
If you weren't wearing your collar, I wouldn't be able to tell who's who. I never thought of that.
Another one of my favourite bits comes from that story when the censorite gets caught out and he's like, "I heard them over talking." It's Superman's home. Yeah, so here's a scene that unequivocally works better in the Donna cut, I think. Because as nice as it is to have Susanna York back, yeah, it does suffer because it isn't Marlon Brando as Jor-El. It does feel weird that he isn't here. And again, as a kid, I didn't question it, but when you find out the reason why, it is a bit like, oh, okay. Oh yeah, forget the toilet gag. Which is, it's not. There's no payoff to that in this version, is there? Because I know in the Donna cut, yeah, in the Donna cut, at the end of the scene, you hear the toilet flush, and she's like, "I found it," but that's not in this. I gotta say though, they do a pretty good job at cutting around the fact, because Gene Hackman is aware that he's supposed to be talking to Marlon Brando during this, but it's not obvious.
Yeah, true. They do get around it quite well, I think.
They do. And I can't remember, is it this?
I mean, I'll say this about the Donna cut. The one thing it has over the theatrical cut is the inclusion of Marlon Brando as Jor-El.
Oh, yeah, completely.
Later on, in this version, Clark picks up a green crystal, and next time we see him, he's got his powers back. Whereas in the Donner Cut, we actually see how he got them back.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, 100%. That is absolutely the best thing about it, because it fulfills the prophecy as well. The father becomes the father, the son becomes the father, and the father the son. Yeah, so that is the one thing that unequivocally does better than the Lester one.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's frustrating because there are things I prefer in each version, and it's not even the big changes. It's not even like the ones that everybody talks about, but it's even little lines that I'm just like, oh, I prefer that in this cut, but then in the Donner cut, oh, I prefer that line reading, because like every inch of it was changed in some way. So it's, yeah. But yeah, this is so how does this relate to Superman Returns then, when Lex goes to the fortress and
Yeah, that's odd.
well, it is because so
If you
one of
go by
the
this continuity, he should be looking at Jor-El thinking, who the hell is that?
yeah, and it's because one of his henchmen says like something to the effect of you speak like you've been here before, and he sort of like grunts at him, which is implied that, oh yes, he has.
Mm-hmm.
But then he walks in and goes, he thinks I'm his son. So it's a bit like, well, hang on, wouldn't you know that if you know how the fortress works because you've been there?
Mm-hmm.
South, Mr. Smuggler.
Yeah, and it amazes me, just after that, Lex just kind of disappears until they've conquered the Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, he really does, doesn't he? He just doesn't do... It makes you wonder whether there was more stuff to be shot with him that just
Well,
never...
yeah, Hackman refused to come back.
Yeah. It does make you wonder. To be honest, both versions of the Lois trying to convince Clark that she knows and to reveal himself. Both versions are quite hilarious, I think, because it's just like she's stupid. She is so stupid to do this.
I mean, all you have to do is just take his glasses off and be like, aha.
I know, yeah. Bye bye, baby. That's a repeated thing from the Donner Cut. What he just did there, where he's like, "You think I'm Superman?" and he does like the flying thing with his hand.
Mm-hmm.
He does that in the Donner Cut in that version as well. Oh god, that's a really obvious dummy. never noticed that before. That dummy is not moving in the water.
I mean, it comes across as a bit awkward later, because here he saves her as Clark, but
Yeah.
then the game's up later when he reveals her as Superman, and then she's like, oh, so you chose not to save me as Superman. Okay.
It's funny as well, the picking and choosing of whether or not his heat vision works through his glasses.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do get odd one-off.
Yeah.
You do get odd one-off powers in this film, like the infamous cellophane S and the memory wiping kiss. It's just so weird.
The cellophane S.
That was a minor inconvenience. Yeah, well, taught you a lesson, didn't it? And I'll say, ow.
Yeah, well, take that, jerk. I'm surprised the cellophane S has not become as well known of a joke as like the shark repellent bat spray and stuff like that, because it is just as stupid. but yeah, we're gonna get you back in for reshoots. Different director. We're just gonna reshoot some of the stuff. Oh, okay, that's fine. So we're just gonna
We're
be
going to throw you
reshooting the
into
same stuff we did.
Niagara Falls.
Oh, great. This is really cool. I loved this as a kid, like him going into the water and then lifting himself back up, and like walking on it. It's a really cool. I mean, when you watch it now, you can see the panel he's walking on, but it's a very cool effect still.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a classic James Bond style. Man looks at the cup of whatever he's drinking and throws it away, which is a classic Bond trope.
Mm-hmm.
Up there with drunken man looks at bottle of wine.
Yeah, apparently Margot Kidder was married to John Hurd for 6 days.
For 6 days. Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's this line where you can really hear that it's Vera from Superman 3. Did you see what he did? Like, it's very...
Mm-hmm.
Just insert her going, brother. Apparently Jack O'Halloran wasn't the biggest fan of Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, and apparently neither was Sarah Douglas.
Yeah, I've heard that before, yeah. I wonder why, like, what... Yeah.
Well, Sarah Douglas apparently, one of the few actors who just was kind of neutral in the whole Richard Donner versus Richard Lester thing. Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't really know why she's dubbed over, because when you hear her real voice in the Donner cut, it doesn't sound that different to, the dub. So it's weird that they felt the need to do it. He could have the angle she was sat at, he could have just gone, oh, it's alright, my hand didn't go in. Like,
yeah, true.
He could have just been like, no, it's fine, I just slipped.
I mean, with the major difference with this and the Donner cut is that this scene in the Donner cut kind of feels like a screen test, and am I right thinking they just used the screen test?
They did. They used multiple screen tests, because if you watch that bit in the Donner cut, you'll notice that their clothes change and Chris goes from being quite skinny to quite buff in the space of a second, because they kind of stitched multiple screen tests together.
Yeah, here he looks completely in shape, but in the Donner cut, I don't think he had started his training yet.
Again, and that's one of the weaknesses that really couldn't have been helped with that. But it is, every time I watch it, I'm just like, this is... Now I'm reminded that it's a patchwork and it's not a finished film. I sort of... For me, with the Donner cut now, the amount of stuff I'm ragging on it, this commentary, you'd think I'd hate it or something. I don't. I'm really glad it exists, but I do sort of agree with what Oliver Harper said recently, where he's like, I tend to view it more as a special feature rather than a full-on film. And that's kind of where I'm at these days, but I'm so glad it happened, though. Like, that's a very cool thing to exist. It's not often you get cuts from a different director like that. It's the original Snyder cut that paved the way for the Snyder cut being released. I dare say without it we wouldn't have had the Snyder cut, because it did kind of set a precedent.
I mean, the closest thing that I can think of is Caligula, because as a film, that's getting a new ultimate cut, which I think
Yeah,
is hitting like mainstream theaters and physical media this year. It's a
yeah, that's
pretty
very cool.
ambitious project. It's a 3 hour cut, and I've not seen it, but apparently not a single frame has been used from like the version that was released in 1980. It's a
Oh my
completely
god,
new cut.
that's
Like,
literally like a different film then.
yeah, so apparently they're just using like alternate takes and things like that.
Right,
So I reckon the story structure will be the same. They'll just like use a different take on
that's
everything.
mental. Not a single frame. That is truly insane.
Yeah, though they can't really call it a director's cut because the director Tinto Brass tried to sue the producer Thomas Nagovan to stop
Oh,
it being
really?
released because apparently he didn't approve of it.
Oh god.
Yeah. I mean, I'd imagine Tinto Brass was quite bitter towards Caligula because
Yeah.
he clashed with the producer. The producer literally locked him out of the editing room.
Oh my god, Jesus.
Yeah. The producer Bob Guccione, he's like the head of Penthouse Films International. And when Malcolm McDowell signed on, he said, Bob Guccione, isn't he like a pornographic maker or something like that? And apparently, his agent was like, oh, no, don't worry, he's just like one of the Warner Brothers, making sure everyone gets their check and money. But nah,
Yeah.
it's a case of like the writer, the director, and the producer all clashing, and none of them.
Jesus Christ. I've
And what
never
we
even
get at
heard
the
of
end
that
is
before.
like a mishmash of everything. But yeah, Malcolm McDowell really loves the new cut. He said, after 47 years, one of my best performances has come to light finally.
Oh, nice. Oh, see,
Yeah.
that's when these things are the best, because that's like vindication. And say it's the similar thing with the Donna cut as well, because it's just like finally a a version of his vision is out there, and it must be very vindicating creatively. And so much of this stuff that was thought lost, and I love it when these things happen. I know some people really hate like any alternate cuts because they're always like, well, it's not the film that was released. And I'm like, yeah, but as long as we're not taking anything away, why not? I think it's
Mhm.
great that we can see multiple versions and see different things that would never have existed. And yeah, I think it's a great.
Yeah,
I
I
think it's a
love
great thing.
alternative cuts. I just think just make sure we can see the original still.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, and you get the choice nowadays: Superman 2, Donna cut, or theatrical. It comes kind of standard now. Um,
Hmm.
and it's great. I just wish Star Wars, because Star Wars is like the only one that still refuses to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You've got like, if you look at the original four Alien films, every one of those has
Oh
an
yeah,
alternate cut, but Star Wars, it's just like update it every few years. Don't bother to release the original.
yeah, exactly. And it's so frustrating.
The only
McClunky.
time they did was in like 2004 when they gave them new edits, but they were released like unrestored
Right? Yeah.
of Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Laserdisc print.
Hmm.
It's so frustrating that it's so frustrating.
I mean, the Fortress of Solitude gets destroyed at the end of this film, doesn't it? More or less.
In the Donner cut, he destroys it. I don't think that
Hmm.
happens in the Lester cut though.
Ah, okay, because
Yeah,
yeah, it's depending what version you watch, it's inexplicably back in Superman
yeah,
4.
yeah. Because that only happens in the Donner cut. He like flies away and
Ah,
destroys it at the end. That doesn't happen in this version. Which, again, I think it works him destroying it because it's him kind of moving on from his dad and not feeling the need to be like his dad anymore. But that's not here, sadly.
hmm.
Thematically, the Donner cut I think works better for the characters. Um,
Hmm.
we've missed Sheriff J.W. Pepper, um, basically playing the same character as he does in the Bond films.
Yep.
My headcanon is it's the same person.
You know, if these three villains walked into the same bar that Superman flicks peanuts in Superman 3, it actually could have worked, because the funny thing about that scene in Superman 3 is that no one reacts to him being there. They're just like,
Yeah.
meh.
They are.
So if it was the same bar as this one, they'd just be like, we already had 3 evil people in here the other year, so this is nothing new.
Oh, we're also about to get the this Texas town in the American Midwest with the inexplicably posh British child, who lives there. Please, Mr. General, please let my daddy down. Even though his dad's like, well, boy.
Well, boy. What the Sam Hill? Oh, that dog of mine.
I just, every time I watch it, why is the kid so British? It just makes me laugh. I actually think a problem with both versions, actually, just as the film as a whole. All this shit's happening. They're terrorizing this town in the Midwest, and all the while Superman's just in the fortress going, well, when my father died, he gave me this crystal, and it helped build me this. And you're like, it's just like, what? I think the costume, it will have been the same costume no matter when they shot it, right? They just would have got it out of storage. But actually, it's something about the colours of it look really nice in the Lester footage. Like, it just looks very kind of, it's probably just the way it's been lit with the different cinematographer, but it just looks very, like, comic booky.
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting as well. I always forget about this detour to go and get a plant.
Mm-hmm.
I quite like the running gag of Non being fascinated by human objects.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Did he get the groceries as Superman or Clark?
uh... So there's one of the many sort of fan edits of this film that went around. Kind of there was the Salutron cut that did like new VFX and stuff, and it kind of took a lot of the villains' destruction and kind of moved them to Washington. So it was like they destroyed Washington before they went to the White House. which works very effectively, I think.
Like any sequel, it takes what worked in the original and kind of ups it to the next level. Because
Yeah,
with
definitely.
Superman the movie, it was all you'll believe a man can fly. But now that we've got three superpowered people
Yeah.
here, it shows what they can really do.
Well, I really like the trailer for this film. Actually, it's one of my favorite sort of classic trailers because it just is. It's that classic kind of cheesy narration. But it's like if you've only seen the first part, you haven't seen the best part. Like it's very kind of, but it's like because the tagline for this was "The adventure continues," and it's like the trailer's like "The adventure continues in Paris with Lois Lane. The adventure continues at the Fortress of Solitude." Like it's very like really going hard on that tagline, which I quite like. I like old trailers like that. It's fun. I think
And
the
casually
best.
filming stuff that casually filming a bunch of superpowered people.
Yeah,
That, of course, would happen today.
yeah. It's funny that the news media just were like, let's not be careful at all. Let's just go right to the outskirts of town and just
Hmm.
get pretty up close to him and just see what makes him tick.
Hmm.
So one thing that I do prefer in this version is how they cut Superman and Lois sleeping together.
Hmm.
Because, and actually, I've got to remember this now because it may be actually that I prefer the Donner cut here. Um, did they sleep together before he gets his powers? He takes away his powers.
I think so. I think in this version where they sleep together and then he loses his powers,
I
or
think it might be. Or wait, no, I think it's after. No. It's this version that. Oh, I'm getting confused. We'll find out in a
hmm
minute anyway. Either way, I the idea of them sleeping together. I mean, it's a hard one. Both versions work, but I kind of like them sleeping together afterwards because then it's a bit like it's kind of a nice moment of like
hmm
peace, and it's like them finally together. And but both versions kind of work, I suppose. Thinking about it, it's not really that much of an issue, but
I mean, if they sleep together when he's Superman, she's probably gonna get wrecked.
yeah, wasn't
If he
didn't one of the
truly is the Man of
Salkinds?
Steel.
Yes, didn't one of the Salkinds have a thing about that? Like they didn't want to dwell on it because it was like they thought she'd be like destroyed, cut in
Yeah.
half. So the general that we've got coming up in a minute is dubbed over differently in both versions as well. It's another one of those things where it's like it's the same footage, but all the voices are different. Yeah, I don't know. I prefer Chris's performance in this version of the scene. Because him going, "Mother, I love her." It's very kind of sincere and genuine. Whereas in the Donna cut, he's like, "Father, I love her." Like it's almost like a bit of like a petulant child going, "No, I love it." Like, but this version is much more like it just feels more genuine, and he's like, "Look, I can't help it." Like, yeah,
Yeah, it is this version where he loses his powers and then they spend the night together.
yes, yeah. Yeah, and I prefer this actually because I just think it's a bit more of a human moment, like a like reprieve and happiness, and just that they're together. And also Lois's face kind of, she's like, "Oh, was this the right decision?" And it gives more of a sense of time between him losing his powers and then him realizing it's a mistake to lose his powers. It just lets that breathe a little bit more, and it feels like, do you know what I mean? It kind of like they sleep together and he's like, "This is why I did this, because I'm with the woman I love. Oh shit, this is a mistake." Rather than in the Donna cut, where they basically just go straight out to the diner and he gets his ass kicked and he's like, "Shit, I fucked up." But yeah, I don't know. But really both versions kind of work, I guess.
Yeah.
This is interesting. The transformation, the losing his powers stuff reuses the cut footage from Superman the movie, of the fire, which we spoke about last time because it's in the extended version, which is interesting. And we see his skull and his skeleton. It's really weird. It is interesting though, losing the powers and everything. It's like that. It's an interesting story decision to take so early on in the franchise, and obviously Spider-Man 2 would would follow that.
It would, yeah. I mean, he should have walked into the diner with Lois singing "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head."
Yeah. Especially because he's in like a white shirt that's been newly given to him. Because actually one thing I do like is that image of when he loses his powers, the silhouette of Superman fades away. I think that's a really powerful image, and that is one thing I sort of miss in the Donna cut. Because I think it's kind of cool that they almost get split into two. And that kind of pays off in Superman 3 when the evil Superman and Clark get split into two.
Very true, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that so much of the film is like Zod and company doing like horrific things and going around and doing all sorts of stuff. And then it just cuts to Superman and Lois just dicking about, eating food, having sex, go into
Oh
diamonds.
yeah,
Like they
pretty good stuff.
just do not give a shit. Is how it's
Mhm.
implied the way it's cut. It's very funny, not intentionally so.
Carving themselves into Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, what do you think of that? Because people really hate that.
I don't mind it.
Yeah, it doesn't. It
Of
doesn't
course they do
seem.
it. They're egocentric.
Yeah, it doesn't. People talk about it as if it's like this really goofy thing, but I don't think it's more or less goofy than anything that happens in the in the first film. Really,
hmm
I don't know. That whole thing of like this film is full of comedic moments that take away all the tension. That only, I think that's really blown out of proportion for me, because I think that only happens in the final battle. Personally,
hmm
for the most part, I think the tone is pretty in line with the first one.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
The attack on the White House is much more violent in the Donner cut. They cut quite a bit out of
Certainly
this.
is. Yeah.
Because there's a
Because
bit, yeah.
is it the Donner cut where Zod picks up a machine gun and just shoots everyone down?
Yeah, that's in the Donner cut. Yeah, they cut that out of this version. Because you can see it happening, actually. He still grabs the machine gun, you just never see him fire it.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas in the Donner cut, he has this little massacre that he goes on. I love that as well. Like the fact that they can so easily walk into the president's the Oval Office, and I see you are practiced in worshipping things that fly. Like, it's very kind of sinister.
Yeah, I love that. He sees through it right away.
Yeah, it's really good. It's like a Phantom Menace. If only General Zod was in the Phantom Menace, he would have seen through Queen Amidala's decoy straight away.
He would have.
Terrence Stamp is in that film though, so
He is. Yeah. Apparently, Terence Stamp was considered for Orsini in Revelation of the Daleks.
oh, really, that could have been cool.
Yeah. Along with Christopher Lee as well.
I swear that you always hear these stories about classic Doctor Who that like they considered all these famous actors for these roles, and I always think, like, did they really think that, like, they'd do it? Because I know Doctor Who was big, but it's one of those things I'm always a bit like, well, aim high, guys. But oh, Richard Donner cameo coming up. He walks past the diner.
Yeah, there he is.
Yep, there he goes. Wonder how he felt about his cameo being left in the film.
Well, the Soulkinds have said if we hated Donner that much, we could have cut his cameo out.
Yeah, and it's a little bit like, well, I mean, not really, because I don't know. So here's where you can see Margot Kidder looking substantially different.
Yeah.
She looks so much more like she did in the first one, because obviously this is all Donna stuff.
I mean, Christopher Reeve also looks a bit thinner as well.
He does. He looks thinner, and the hairpiece
And
doesn't look as
again,
nice.
he has lost his powers here, so
That's
it
true.
works.
That is very true, actually. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, they flew to the Fortress of Solitude, but where did they get the car from?
That's a good point. Did they just nick it?
Yeah.
I do like Clark being like overconfident though, because
Hmm.
he's so used to being able to like do all this. But
Because
I
when he
love
gets
it.
beaten up, I truly believe this is a guy who's finally experienced what pain is
Oh
like.
god, yeah, yeah, no, 110%. He's yeah. It's when he's like, it's blood, it's my blood. Like it's really good. God, Christopher Reeve's so good though. He's good. He's good in all of
Hmm.
them. It's so mad though that
You're gonna chuck the guy who's clearly assaulted someone out.
right, he's assaulted someone and he's completely destroyed your property. The fact that they just stood there like, well, Rocky, watch out. Like it's a bit like, well, hang on, call the police because he's like destroyed your property. He's assaulted someone. It's
Hmm.
the guy next to him on the table is just literally just staring over, just not doing anything. I don't like your meat anyway. Of course, because that's something. I mean, we'll talk about it when we get to the ending. But the Donner cut keeps in the scene of him going and beating him up at the end. But in that
Hmm.
version, it doesn't make a lot of sense because he's reversed time. So it it just comes
Yeah,
across as like
that wouldn't have happened. I take it.
no, it wouldn't have done, and especially because he's like, I just had this place fixed, and it's just like, well, hang on a minute, what? Oh, also, we're about to hear the infamous Superman. Who is this?
Man,
Superman. Come to me, Superman. Here's an interesting dub over that the Last Cut's dubbed over that's different. It's when Superman, well, Clark, I guess, says he knew, but in this version he says
hmm.
they knew. I think. Or it could be the other way round. I've got the subtitles on, so we'll find out in a minute, but
Man.
Superman. I also love the kneel before Zod. Zod! Repeating his name.
Zod. My name is Zod.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this is it. This so he says they knew. I heard them. I just didn't listen.
Hmm.
In the Donner cut he says he knew. I heard
Ah,
him.
okay.
He just didn't listen. So talking about obviously Jor-El, but it's dubbed over with they. And you can see if you look at Chris Reeve's lips, he does say he. Um,
Mm.
so what was it? What? Why didn't he drive back?
Yeah, true. He stopped the car,
He's
unless
still
he
got
can't
the
go
car.
on at this point. Because, I don't know, maybe it's the snow, I don't know.
I don't know why he felt the need to hitchhike. I mean, you might have died from hypothermia now.
Hmm.
Like fuck me, it's the Arctic. Because hey, this is something that this has bothered me since I was a kid as well. How much time does it take for one to walk to Antarctica?
Not a clue.
Because it cuts back to the fortress and the villains are just stood there twiddling their thumbs, and it's a bit like, Right, how long are you going to wait? Because I'm pretty sure it takes quite a while to walk to Antarctica. Yeah, I prefer the reshot scene here because I think it's lit a lot nicer as well. Like it's all in shadow.
Hmm.
I just think it looks. This is an example where actually the reshoots kind of looked at the original footage and went, okay, how can we improve on this?
Hmm.
How can
Because the
we?
Donner cut's a lot brighter, isn't it?
It's a lot brighter. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, you got to remember as well, the Donner footage was shot under very hurried circumstances because they were really up against it on the production. So it was
Hmm.
probably a case of like, well, this is good enough because we're just going to have to make do with what we've got. I'm sure the team working on that probably wanted to do a lot more, but I've got to say though, watching this, like obviously it's clear it's a patchwork, but it's quite impressive for 1980 that they did manage to do a good enough job of putting it all together and salvaging it.
Yeah,
Because it
definitely.
could have been a lot worse. It's a miracle that it is as coherent as it is.
Oh, now Lex Luthor comes
Yeah,
back.
there it is. Got there in the end, didn't you?
Hmm.
I do like how Lex is used though. Like, of course, this version of the character would go and try and team up with them
Hmm.
because again, it's different
So I
from
reckon
like
if it was reckon if it was say the one from the cartoon, he'd probably try and enslave them.
yeah, definitely. That's definitely the difference. Like this version of Lex isn't like that. He will just kind of latch on to anybody he thinks could see him greater power,
Hmm.
which I quite like. It's funny watching this because like Michael Shannon's Zod is very very different from this.
Yeah, Michael Shannon's Zod was practically, he was practically a fascist, I'd say, believing Krypton
Yeah.
must be pure, Krypton must be only for the powerful and the strong, the weak will die, so basically a conservative. Um,
Hey.
and yeah, this Zod is without a sense of humor, megalomaniacal,
Yeah.
but definitely power hungry as well, because, yeah.
And Shannon's Zod was much more. His motivations were a lot more personal as well, whereas this Zod is just like, well, I'm free and I'm gonna rule the nearest planet.
Hmm.
But then again, there is
It's
the bend of
honestly,
like, I'm gonna enslave the son of our jailer, and
I mean, they've both got iconic hammy villain lines like kneel before Zod and
yeah,
damn.
yeah. And of course, Michael Shannon reprised his role as Zod in The Flash, so
Yeah, I heard, yeah.
and he's inexplicably the main villain of it.
like I said, the DCEU now, it's that scene from The Simpsons. Guess it's just us and the tumbleweed.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, this is this whole bit is very noticeable. Look at Margot Kidder. I think she's wearing a wig in the Lester reshoots. She looks very kind of. I mean,
She might have been, yeah.
Not to harp on about it because it's probably not. She was probably going through a hell of a lot, but oh Christ, she does look gaunt. Like, and that sounds really mean, but she does look really.
Well, I know
thin.
she was. Yeah, she was going through a divorce at the time, so that probably didn't help.
And
now, what you need to do is have Zod pick up Perry White and say, "White, you slime." Who's the photographer that takes the pictures of Superman?
I don't know who he is. You're lying. You are useless, you.
General, set him down, tough guy.
Speak of the devil, the son of our jailer.
All of that, quick, take a picture.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Like Margot Kidder is now looking a lot like she did in the first one again, as she's talking to basically any scene with Gene Hackman in.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, yeah, they're doing their best they can to hide it, but it's painfully noticeable. I do love these characters though, like the dynamics of them just speaking to each other is very fun. Like they're the best of friends, if you know what I mean. Like it's good. It's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here's something I do prefer in this version as well. The line that Superman says when he's at the window.
Yeah, General, would you care to step outside?
Yeah, because in the Donner cut, it's General. Haven't you heard of freedom of the press? And it's just it's just not as good. This is just better. This is just a better line.
Because it shows Superman will fight them, but he'll do his best to get it away from all the people.
Yeah.
I love that. Superman, fear God. I mean...
I love it. It's so good.
Yeah, before Zod.
I love
this
this
fight
final
scene
battle.
all of Lester then?
Most of it, yeah. There's a few...
I know in the Donner cut, he obviously cut out quite a bit of Lester's gags of, like, phone booths being knocked over.
Yeah,
ice cream going into people's faces.
Those are the only moments of the film that I think people are justified when they say about the humour.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only moments I think it really is intrusive. I think Donna had a few cutaways shot of the final battle. So the Daily Planet stuff I think is Donna. It's funny though, isn't it? It's like both versions are so heavily prioritizing giving credit to one director over another. And I, like I said, I do just think we need one that just balances
I'd say that's unrealistic of a someone saying this is going to get good, but yeah,
Yeah,
if this
no.
happened in real life, we would all be like that.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Hmm. Until it's New York, you can see the Twin Towers.
Yep, there we go. They've stopped pretending that Metropolis is anything other than New York.
Hmm. So, okay, 2 films time, it's Milton Keynes.
Well, there you go. I just love the Britishness of like Sarah Douglas going Superman.
Superman.
Yeah, because I know that Donna was kind of forced to use a lot of the Leicester stuff as well in the final battle because he didn't have much of it.
Hmm. Yeah, true, yeah. Wow, home run. Oh, hi, Mark.
Yeah,
Maybe that is Tommy Wiseau. Wouldn't surprise me.
you never know.
I know this is 1980, but you imply, I mean, you like to imply that when he made The Room, he was just as old as Greg Sestero, who was in his early 20s. Oh my god, my baby! It's not like I can just move.
That's the classic thing, isn't it? I like that they poke fun of that in the church on Ruby Road.
That's it.
A pram on Christmas Eve. It's my shopping. I love all that. It's great. He's caged. No, I wouldn't say he's caged him. He's trapped him in a bit of rubble that he could probably easily break out of. But
Hmm.
yeah, sure, caged. Why not? It's pretty, like it does sell the scale of these three. I think quite well.
Yeah, true. Yeah, for what they've got at the time, they are selling it quite well.
Yeah, this would have been pretty difficult to pull off as well. Like, because I mean, is this all a set? I'm assuming it is.
I think it is. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
all a set, and like all those cars were practically toy models and things like that.
yeah. And a bit of Christopher Reeve there going to the Jodie Whittaker school of whenever she sonics her screwdriver, she does it very dramatically, and he's just in the same with his super breath.
Yeah. I want a new version of Superman 2 that cuts to Non and Superman going down the hole, and it's that scene from The Simpsons. There is no escape from the fortress of the moles. No, except that.
I quite like. Oh, it's not yet, is it? It's later on when Superman flies off, and the kid's just like, Superman didn't even do nothing.
How disappointing. Maybe don't call for him when you're about to hit him.
Yeah.
Hey Zod, did you get that letter I sent? Throws him into a post van. No, because you didn't stamp it, Superman.
Also, Marlboro cigarettes getting good good paycheck off this film.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a cigarette van. I thought it was a post van.
Yeah. The
Yeah, I love that. His
lighting.
priority is the people.
Yeah, definitely. I gotta say as well, the lighting on the characters as they fly is really quite impressive. How they've managed to match it to the background plates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love this. They killed Superman.
Yeah,
Come on, let's get him.
yeah, I like that. It's quite. It's a bit of the like the Raimi trilogy thing of like, yeah, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. But in this case, it
Yeah, I
is
like
like
that.
they've got no hope of defeating them, have they? Because it is just like, well,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gags like that.
yeah. This is the only time I think it intrudes. Really, it's very
Mm-hmm.
Richard Lester that. Um,
Like, you forgot your chain.
yeah, it's the wig flying off as well. It's quite. My hair, your hair. What about mine? It is daft. It's very daft.
Yeah.
And obviously that element gets pushed up to 11 in part 3, but we'll get to that
Mm-hmm.
next week.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that next time.
I also
Why
like.
is he laughing?
Yeah. Well, the extras must have had fun.
Mm-hmm.
I also like that the car immediately explodes when it goes into that small puddle of water. Like,
Because Hans Moleman was in it.
yeah,
Oh no, I just made my last payment. Oh, bang.
it's the James Bond thing, isn't it? When in Doctor No, when the car goes down the cliff and it just blows up for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god, and the guy on the roller skates. I forgot about
Mm-hmm. Which way to the Starlight Express audition?
that. I do like as well that Superman's just like, well, yeah, fuck it, I cannot do any more here. Time to make the best, time to make the best course of action.
Yeah, because this Superman's main priority is the people.
Yeah. Henry Cavill Superman couldn't give a shit. He'd just be
Yeah.
like...
Yeah, because when Henry Cavill's Superman saves people, he looks just so miserable. It's like, I'll do it, I guess.
Yeah. Ah, phony.
That's right. He didn't do nothing. Come on, let's go.
Bad parenting there, letting their kids go out during the streets during a big superhero battle. Superman fled. Certain lines from Terrence Stamp just make me laugh. Why would you say this to me when you know I would kill you for it? Superman's address. Yeah, so coming up, here's where you really get the obvious Gene Hackman double. As you just watch when they drop him off at the fortress and just listen to the voice. God, that really would not be safe, would it? Just hanging onto somebody's back.
Yep.
There's no way of making that safe. Yeah, here we go as they go into the fortress.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's really
pretty
bad.
obvious.
Another small slip for mankind. So funny as well because I don't. Did you really need to do? But it's funny because obviously this is all Leicester stuff now with them fighting and the made-up powers and the cellophane S, and you notice that Lex Luthor's nowhere to be seen, not in a body double,
Yeah, he's not...
nowhere. So it's just, yeah.
Cellophane S. What was that?
It's the fact that it just...
Yeah, take that, you jerk.
It just dissolves as well. It does fuck all. It literally does nothing.
Because that's not in the Donner cut, is it? The Superman cellophane S.
Oh, no, it isn't. None of this made-up power stuff is. I don't really know why they felt the need to put it in, other than Leicester needed a certain amount of footage to get director credit.
Maybe.
Because the teleporter... I mean, you can headcanon it as, like, the fortress amplifies one's powers, if they're Kryptonian, maybe.
Possibly,
like,
yeah.
Maybe this is just them using the fortress to their advantage, or something like that. You can headcanon it with some reason like that if you really want to.
Yeah, it's this whole teleport multiplication thing. That's not in the Donner cut, is it?
No, it isn't. God,
Fair.
I've just noticed when Non jumps at the hologram Superman, you can see boots. Like,
yeah, true.
as it crumbles off, you can see like boots and stuff. So it's like they actually had like a proper model of Superman there. Again, I like that they didn't feel the need to like pad Christopher Reeve's costume out with any like fluff or any extraneous detail didn't need to be there. It's just a clean cloth outfit. It looks like Superman. You know who it is, and that's
Yeah, oh, he's fine. Now he shows up.
yeah. It's so obvious, isn't it? Because that's the body double that then walks up and goes, "Hey guys, sorry I'm late," and then it cuts to Donna footage because you notice the fortress looks different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Guy always knew where he stood with you. So Richard Pryor, before Superman 3 came out, I don't know if you've seen the clip of him talking about how excited he was for Superman 2.
Mm-hmm. That I have seen that clip, yeah. But I don't know if there is. I don't know if the clip exists of him, saying, "Oh, I want to be in a Superman movie" or something like that.
Apparently, he was very disappointed with how Superman 3 came out, though. Like, he was very much like he wanted to be in it, like as a serious villain. He didn't want to be what ended up happening.
Did he want to be like the main villain or something?
I think so. Yeah, he did. He wanted to play it seriously. He didn't. Apparently, he was very disappointed by the fact that they pushed it in the way that it, ended up going in. But
yeah, well, I'm sure he dried those tears with his $5 million
I was going to
paycheck.
say, I'm sure the money helped ease that pain a bit, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that. As a kid, though, this moment here where he like reverses the power changing stuff. As a kid, that was like the coolest thing ever. Like I remember just being like, "Oh, that's fucking badass!" Like really kind of loving it, and especially when they play the theme in a minute. Because we haven't really talked about it, but like Ken Thorne obviously has rearranged the score, and he does an admirable job, and I really like the villain's theme. Because again, that's a weakness of the Donner cut, is they have to completely use John Williams' work for the first film, and they have to reuse all of it. I just don't think it works. I wonder what effect. What effect do you think that had on Lex and Lois though? Like being in that beam, because it is one of those things where I'm a bit like,
I would think it didn't have much effect.
Yeah, you'd think it would though. It's one of those weird things. It's like, well, that is still radiation, isn't it? I don't know. I love the cutaway to Non because he looks really concerned and upset.
And apparently the TV version of this reveals he didn't kill them.
Yes, because there's a scene where like the Arctic police take them away and put them in prison. Which, to be honest, it is kind of an appropriate scene to have, because in both versions actually, he basically does just murder them.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go as well. Back to Lester footage when they hug, and then back to Donna footage straight after. It's like, yeah. Also, does he just leave Lex Luthor in the Arctic?
Possibly, yeah.
Because you don't see him flying away. Yeah, he says, if you give me a ride back, I'll promise to turn over a whole new leaf. So does Superman just leave him in the fortress? Because that seems like a dangerous thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, we're about to get into the memory wiping kiss, and this gets a lot of stick from fans. But I've got to be honest, I'm indifferent on the kiss itself. However, I think the scene is brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
I love
For
how
me,
it's
what
performed.
makes it work is the conviction of the two leads. They really pull it off.
100%.
Whereas, yeah, just repeating time, reversing time again in the world is just
Yeah,
like been there, done that.
that's the thing that lets the Donna cut down for me ultimately, because I've got problems with it, just generally, but I still like it. And then the ending happens, and I just think it just doesn't work. And I know that they were forced to use it, but it just takes the whole. So the whole film's reversed, and it's a bit like, well, hang on a minute, are the events not just going to happen again?
That's
Like,
true, exactly.
it just doesn't work for me, no matter which way I look at it.
Is the Paris attack still going to happen? That you
Yeah.
have to send it into space and release it?
And it looks awful as well, because they have that horrible body double for Lois, and they cut to like stock footage of people on the streets, except it's clearly 2006 because they're all dressed in modern clothes, and it just doesn't. Nothing about that ending works for me, and for me it ruins the film. And I hate that expression, but for me it really does, and it's such a shame. But this, I really, contrived as the memory wiping kiss may be, I love the human drama, and the fact there's no music either. It's just two actors going for it. It's brilliant. It's so well done. But yeah, that ending in the Donna again. I know why, but it just doesn't work, which is fine. I also love, like, again, it's a testament to Christopher Reeve's acting, because he's doing this lovely kind of understated performance here. He's speaking in his Superman voice, and then as soon as he does the kiss, he if you watch him, he's bumbling about and he's going, "Oh, breathe, breathe." Like his voice is much more nasally. It's really great.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, if you want to, you can pretend that both versions of Superman 2 are canon, because you can say
You can, yeah.
he reversed time. He thought it was all fixed and all safe, and then all the events happened again, and so he was like, bugger it, I'm just going to wipe her mind. So there you go, you can headcanon that if you really want to. But I think it's this kind of stuff that Lester doesn't get the credit for, because this is all him, and people focus on the comedy he did. And I'll talk more about this when we do Superman 3 next time. But there's so many moments in that film that are really lovely, like human stuff. But people don't often focus on it. Sadly, they just focus on the silly stuff, and it's a shame, because I think he knows how to get good performances out of his guy. I mean, I've not seen the Musketeer films, but yeah.
Oh yeah, they're very well performed. I mean, the entire cast in that is just fantastic.
Yeah, I think he's good at getting good performances out of his actors.
And he can do darker stuff, because I'd argue, even though it's technically one big film, The Four Musketeers is more of a tragedy than, say, The Three Musketeers,
Right,
because
yeah.
in the first film, no one really dies at the end. It ends on a triumphant note, but The Four Musketeers kind of ends in tragedy.
I need to watch them.
And it is appropriately done, though.
Yeah, I've heard good things about them. I do need to watch them.
Well, there was a brand new restoration of them on Blu-ray recently.
Oh, nice. Because are they the only other ones that what other films did the Soul Kinds do? Because I obviously know this, Supergirl, Santa Claus the movie, the Musketeers.
True, yeah. Let's
what
have a
else did
look.
they do? But it also as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, go on.
Alexander Solkind, the Musketeer films, Cross Swords.
Cross swords.
The last film Alexander Solkine worked on was Santa Claus the movie, really.
Oh, that was the last one. I didn't realise that.
Yeah, Ilya Solkind. Let's see what he's done. Moved on to. Oh, apparently they were involved in the TV series Superboy.
Oh yeah, they were. Yeah, I think that was more like their names were on it, but they didn't have much involvement. I think that was like they got it off the ground, but that was about it.
Yeah.
It's interesting though because they never really followed up on this properly, but when he kisses her at the end and leaves, the look he gives to Lois is a really cool bit of drama that could have been followed up on that, I think, because it's very much left as like a setup for something that just never came. Like just the way it's shot and he looks at her and it's just like it is like, oh yeah, come back for part 3 because you get to see how that gets resolved. And yeah, but of course she's barely in part 3 because of various reasons that are still debated today.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, this is quite satisfying, him going back to the dine like this. Yeah, because he even says, "I've been working out." You know, so it's like it's clearly that they're meant to know him, which is weird in the Donner cut that it's just like he comes back to presumably a random bar.
Yeah, because if he did reverse time, they wouldn't know who he is.
Yeah, exactly. It would even work if you just put that scene before he reverses time, if you really wanted to do it. And that's a great image as well. He's flying with the American flag. That's a classic Superman image.
Mm-hmm.
And bookending the film the exact same way that the first one ends, which is very fun. And they were so confident that in the credits, coming soon, Superman 3. Which I quite like.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting looking at these credits because we've got photographed by Jeffrey Unsworth, but the director of photography is Bob Paintner. That's interesting.
True.
That's essentially 2 different ways of saying the same job, which I find quite funny. Photographed by, director of photography. Production designed by John Barry and Peter Merton. Film editor John Victor Smith. Yeah, it's so interesting looking at the dual credits because obviously they couldn't get away with not crediting the original people. But yeah, so Superman 2 is an odd film, but it's great fun. I don't think anyone would deny that, would they?
Exactly, yeah. I don't think anyone would deny that, yeah, it is a great film and just a very worthy sequel to the original.
Yeah, I agree. I still enjoy watching it every now and then. Like I said, I think the reception it's got over the last couple of years has definitely been more mixed than it used to be, but I still think, you know, I mean, Terence Stamp, for one, is iconic, you know, as Zod. And that is still quoted today, you know, he is General Zod, really. But it's sort of the last gasp of I guess the original vision for these films, really. Because, of course, you get to the next one and it's very different, and then Superman 4 is just well, Superman 4 is just Superman 4. But, Debbie McWilliams, did she work on Sky? I want to say she worked on, like, the Bond films up until very recently.
She might have done,
I
yeah.
think I think I've heard that name on like Skyfall and stuff. Maybe that's interesting.
Hmm.
We've also got a credit there for astronautical consultant.
Should have been Neil Armstrong.
Yeah, it should have been Buzz Aldrin, and then he'd punch anyone who questioned him. But yeah, Dick Dimbleby. That's a great British name. But yeah, it's a good film. Like I said, I grew up on it, so I've got a lot of nostalgia for this version in particular.
Hmm.
And yeah, I would
I think
say,
I think maybe the reason I would, when I first got into these, when I preferred Superman 2 over the first, is that I just preferred the villains over Lex Luthor, because I just think Zod is a better villain than Lex.
he's a more fun villain, definitely. I do agree
Hmm.
with that. And I do think it's an easier watch than the first one, to be honest, because the first one is very long. But yeah, it's an odd film, and I'm glad but it's always worth a good discussion, I think. So, yeah. Well, everyone, that's the end of the commentary. What are we doing next week?
Next time we will be doing Superman 3.
Yeah, get your 80s computer technology out of the attic and load up for
Hmm.
for some incredibly camp, absolutely nonsense comedy starring Superman and Richard Pryor. So yeah,
Hmm.
look forward to that. In the meantime, you can follow myself and Isaac on social media and subscribe to both our YouTube channels, and we will see you next time. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.